If you've ever wanted to start bullet journaling but felt overwhelmed, you're not alone. Most people overcomplicate their journals with elaborate spreads that demand perfection. But that's not what the bullet journal method was meant for. Today, I'm going to show you how to set up a minimalist bullet journal that actually helps you focus, stay productive, and get things done. No fluff, no fancy artwork, just a streamlined system that works. Now, I'm a huge fan of analog productivity systems because they help me avoid digital distractions. Most productivity apps promise organization, but fail because they live on devices designed for distraction. A notebook, on the other hand, creates space for deep focus and intentional planning. No notifications, no endless scrolling, just you and the page. If you're new to bullet journaling, don't worry, I'll walk you through each step so it's easy to follow along. First, we'll set up a brand new bullet journal from scratch. Then, I'll show you how to plan goals and track habits effectively. And finally, I'll walk through daily logging so you can stay organized and in control of your time. Everything is broken into chapters so you can jump to the sections you need. All right, let's get started. So this is a standard A5 size. This is a regular notebook size, pretty common. It's a Leuchtturm 1917. My purpose, my intention for this notebook is to use it for my YouTube channel and some of my creator business type stuff. I like a notebook to have a distinct purpose. This is kind of going to be my creative home, which is why this orange color called out to me. If you know anything about color theory, orange is a color of creativity. It's a color of movement and action. And so whenever I see this orange notebook, I'm going to be thinking that's my creative space. That's where I'm going to go to unleash my ideas. All right, so let's get into this. What's great about Leuchtturm is that they already have numbered pages, which is awesome because a lot of notebooks you're going to have to go in and fill the page numbers by hand, which is annoying because the first step we're going to be doing to set up this new bullet journal is creating an index. For creating an index, it's very simple. You're just going to go towards the front of the notebook and you're just going to write at the top, index. And we're just going to write down the page numbers that this index is going to be on, which I just realized that that's page 1. This is page 0, I guess. So now I know when I go to this page, I'm like, all right, where's my index? I'm going to know it's from pages 0 to 3. And that's it for now. I mean, there's really nothing else I could do here because we haven't made anything else in the bullet journal. So we're going to move on to the next step. But every bullet journal has an index. This is a basic part of the system. Okay, so another key part of the bullet journal system is the bullet system itself. He calls it rapid logging in the book. And so I'm going to create a key for it real quick and then explain how each one works so that you have a better idea of what the bullet system is. So I'm just going to make the key over here, and let's just start from the top. So a bulleted dot like that is a task. This is something that needs to get done that isn't done yet. Now, what happens when you finish the task? Well, in his book, he says that he just gives a little X. So that's a completed task. Now, the next icon is going to be a little circle, and that's going to be an event. So this would be stuff like, meeting with Jen at 6 p.m. or Tina's birthday or whatever, just events. Okay, so the next one is what happens when you have a task, but it doesn't get done that day? What are you going to do with that task? Well, if you plan on doing it the next day, what you could do is create this little icon, this little right icon to migrate the task. So that just means that you've taken this task from, let's say, Monday, and you've moved it over to Tuesday. And this icon just lets you know, hey, I migrated this. It's not lingering anywhere. This has been moved to somewhere else. And the same thing goes for tasks that are far in the future. So let's say it's Monday and the beginning of March, but you have some sort of deadline for a project that's due in November. Well, what you're going to do is going to give this little icon, this little left arrow icon, and this means that you have scheduled the task to a future date, which we'll talk about more in a second. But that's the icon you give it. So you get the task, you write it down because you don't want to forget it, but you don't want it to just live somewhere and you don't know about it. You want to use this little icon to note that it's been scheduled and you don't have to worry about losing it or not remembering it later. So sometimes you'll write down a bunch of tasks because you have a ton of stuff to get through in a day. And you realize that, you know what, out of all these tasks, this one is the most important. It is an absolute priority. I need to get it done. So what you do is mark it as a priority by giving it this little asterisk symbol. And then this is super important. Now you could put it in front of the bullet, or you can actually make the bullet itself into an asterisk. Doesn't really matter. A very important marker is this, just a little dash. And that just means it's a note. Notes are just notes. That's what they are. So if you're just making a note about something, like maybe you're listening to a podcast and you're just trying to write down a couple quick notes, just give a little dash and start writing things. And then finally, what happens when you establish that you have a task, but then you get to the end of the day and you realize, honestly, it doesn't matter. I don't need to do that. Well, you just cross it off. That's it. So when something's irrelevant and it just doesn't matter anymore, you just cross it off. Now, this key system is directly translated from this book. So this is the bullet journal method. I'm not going off of any influencer's unique system or whatever. This is just word for word what this book taught me. All right, let's move on to some more interesting stuff, because that's just the boring stuff. Index key, cool. All right, so I'm on page 4 now, because remember I dedicated the first 3 pages to the index. The next key part of the bullet journal system is to create a future log. So I'm gonna do this real quick and then we'll talk about it some more. This is what's called the future log. Now notice we got each month, January, February, March, April, May, June. So this 2-page spread at a glance just gives you a bird's eye view of the things that you have coming up in the future. So if you have an event coming up or a deadline that's due in the future, it can go here and live in the future log, and this will give you just a quick look. You're gonna reference this when you're doing your monthly planning or your weekly planning, and you're just gonna use this as the overall bird's eye view of what you have coming up. For instance, on March 23rd, I have my anniversary. To make sure I'm a good husband and I don't forget, I'm gonna write it down here. And that way, every time I open up this journal and I do a quick look and I go, what's going on in March? Oh yeah, there's that anniversary. I better book something nice. Now, something that isn't in the bullet journal method is a quarterly goal setting system or anything like that. And this is something that I do personally, and it helps me immensely. So what I like to do is just at the top here, just create a quick little thing and separate my goals by quarter. So this is my quarter 1 goals, right? Because these are the quarter 1 months, quarter 2 goals. And these aren't the detailed, like in-depth, how I'm going to achieve these goals, why I'm trying to achieve them or anything like that. They're just quick little reference points and the metrics or the results that I'm looking to track to measure progress on my goals. And I think it's here that an example helps. So to give you a quick rundown of how I use this quarterly goal setting system, I'll just show you what I did at the beginning of the year with my pocket notebook planner and just kind of briefly explain my thinking behind it. So in quarter 1, I have the category of goal, so weight, revenue, YouTube, newsletter, books. I have the current metric that I'm measuring, and then the goal metric for what I want to have happen by the end of quarter 1. And then I have a results column to track that progress, to see where did I land after 3 months. So I like to set these numbers and these measurements that I'm trying to achieve, because this is how I keep myself accountable and make sure that I'm making progress towards the things that I think are important for right now. Now, they could change over time, but at the time of making these goals, at the beginning of the quarter, this is what I felt like was important. So anyways, that's kind of the goal setting system that I use to keep myself accountable. And I think it's useful to keep it on these future logs, right? So if I just flip open my page, I know I'm going to be looking at this future log a lot because it's going to have upcoming events and due dates that are important to me. So you want your goals to be in a place that you're looking at a lot, because if you're constantly reminded of what you're working towards, then you're going to take the actions that'll get you to that outcome. That's just how our brain works. That's the power of writing it down. If you write it down once and you put it away somewhere in your house where you never see it again, you're not going to be reminded of it, and you're more likely to just kind of forget about the goals that you set and forget that you actually had those desires and just move on with your life without actually making any progress. But if you're constantly reminded of the things that you said you wanted to do, that were important enough for you to write down and for you to start to make some headway on, then it becomes an inevitable outcome that you achieve those goals. So I'm going to write those down real quick because I want them in here just so I have them in 2 places. Okay, so we're off to a good start. See, so we have our future log set up. We've got our quarterly goals and what we're tracking to keep ourselves accountable with those goals. And this is something we're going to look at all the time. Okay, so we're back at our index and we're going to write future log, and those are going to be pages 4 to 7. So again, that's the point of this index. It's so that you know what page to go to find something. So if you one day sit down and you're on page 59 and you decide, I'm going to just write out what I want in life, like what I'm going to make a plan, an action plan for the next 5 years, yada, yada, yada. Well, you don't want to be like flipping through the whole book to find it, right? You could just write down future life plan, page 59. And that's how the index works. So whenever you create a new page you feel like you want to reference again in the future, just come in and put it in your index. Next, we're going to move on to creating the monthly log. Fortunately, I had already done it. I had recorded it. I went through this whole process. I talked about everything. And then I realized that my camera had stopped recording. So screw February. We're moving on. I want to re-demonstrate this in March so you get so you can see how this looks. Yeah, very bummed that all got deleted, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Nothing ever goes perfectly as planned. You have to adapt and adjust. All right, so monthly log. What we're going to do is at the very top, we're just going to put March, because that's the month we're making this for, even though it might not be March when you're watching it. For these monthly logs, what we're going to do is we're going to create, we're just going to number down the amount of days in the month, and then we're going to put down what day of the week that is, just to give us a little easy reference point. All right, so 1 through 31, one for each day of the month. And then now I'm just going to go through and label them by day of the week. And it looks like March starts on a Saturday, so that's a little S. And we're just going to go down the list. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a habit tracker on this right side of the page in those columns right there. And each day is going to correlate over here to a little space in the grid. So I'm just going to quickly draw this out and then explain my reasoning for why I'm creating a habit tracker, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the purpose of them and how useful they are in relation to goals and systems. But first, let me just draw them out and then we'll talk. Okay, cool. So now I have the habit tracker over here. Each row coincides with the day. So on the first, I will track the habits that I want to keep track of in these boxes. And I just want to make a quick note about perfectionism. May not seem obvious, but some of these lines aren't perfect. And you know what? It just doesn't matter, okay? Like, this does not have to be perfect. In fact, it shouldn't be perfect. If you are obsessing over making this thing absolutely flawless and no mistakes, you're just not going to use it. So if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal, okay? Like, your notebook's still going to be okay. Like, it'll still work. It'll still do the thing you want it to do. So let's talk habits. A key habit of mine is to learn something new every day, which is why I'm excited to share the sponsor of today's video, Brilliant. Brilliant helps you get smarter every day with thousands of interactive lessons in math, science, programming, data analysis, and AI. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things you could do, both for personal and professional growth. Brilliant helps you expand your mind and develop practical skills in a few minutes a day. It's the opposite of mindless scrolling. Brilliant offers a range of cutting-edge topics to explore, like AI, that help you build lifelong problem-solving skills in the process. Become a better thinker with every lesson. Whether you're learning to translate your ideas into code, build new formulas, or run simulations with data, Brilliant makes learning fun and interactive. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/ZachRollins. You can scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description below. And if you decide to try it out, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium membership. Thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. All right, let's get back into it. My gripe with habit tracking is that it does not work if you don't have a strong purpose or goal attached to it. If you're just tracking how much water you're drinking, like you have a habit tracker and it just says water, and you're just gonna mark the days that you drink a gallon of water. Well, that's cool if you have an outcome-based goal attached to it. But if you're just doing it just to say that you're drinking a gallon of water a day, it's just going to become a chore and you're not going to really care. And you're going to miss a day and then you're going to miss 2 days and you're not going to be motivated to get back on the horse because there's no real destination that you're going towards with it. You're just tracking this thing because somebody said that you should be drinking more water. and now you feel like you need if I keep track of it, then I will do more of it. It's not really how goals work. Habits are the system to help you reach a goal. So you'll see this online. There's all these arguments about systems versus goals and which one's better. And the thing is, you need both to be successful. If you have quarterly goals or monthly goals or whatever they may be, and they have specific outcomes or objectives, that's cool. But that doesn't mean you're going to reach those goals, because you need a system to get there. If I want to get to 500 newsletter subscribers, I need a system of actions, a collection of habits that are going to help me increase that number, because that's the goal I've set for myself. So if I say, oh, I'm going to get 500 newsletter subs in the first quarter, but I don't take any action to make that happen, then I'll never reach this goal. So if you just set the goal by itself, it's kind of pointless, because again, you don't have the thing that's going to get you there. And it's the same thing with a habit tracker, but it's the opposite. Instead of the goal, you have the system. But if you don't have a goal that you're going towards, then tracking these things doesn't matter, because I could be, let's say, writing every day, but if I'm not writing stuff that's going to help me build my newsletter, then that doesn't really help me achieve any of the things that I'm trying to achieve. So keep that in mind with habits, is that if you're going to track a habit, just make sure it's aligned with something that you actually want in life, and not something that you're just trying to keep track of just for the sake of it. I mean, if you're just trying to gather data on yourself, that's cool too, but for what purpose? Why? What is the reason that you're doing this? Because if you clearly understand why you're doing something, and you clearly understand the goal attached to it, and you clearly understand that these actions done consistently will give you the best odds of achieving that thing, then it all makes sense. It's just, you're going to do it. You're going to keep being on top of it, because you will see tangibly that by taking those actions, you are getting closer to those goals. If you don't have that reason, then it's going to become a chore. You're not going to see the point in doing it, and you're eventually going to give up on it. You're going to get all these blank squares and go, I suck. I should probably just give up. And that's the worst thing that can happen. You never want to be having conversations with yourself like that. What these are for is so that you can know any important upcoming dates. So again, like I have my anniversary on the 23rd, so I would just write anniversary. So when I look at March, I could quickly go, oh yeah, that super important date is coming up, or I have a conference on the 20th. I need to make sure I'm going to that conference or whatever. It's just to keep it top of mind, so you just have one nice little concise place to look for things. On this right side of the page, Writer Carol uses the entire page for tasks. I feel like that's crazy. I don't need an entire spread for just tasks. That's a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm going to use the right side of this page, these right two columns, as my task column. We'll talk more about tasks in a minute. They are important to the overall system, but just for now, we're going to move on, and I'm going to put what I like to add here, and that is the mission for the month. Now, I don't know if you could tell, but I'm obviously pretty intense about setting goals and creating systems to achieve them. I just feel like that is the thing that derives motivation. When you wake up every morning and you're very clear on what it is you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to get there, it's very easy to be motivated to take the actions you need to make it happen. So I like to create a monthly mission. So what is the mission for March? Now, we had our quarterly goals, and now we have our monthly goal. So what's the main project for the month? This is a good time to look at the example. So of these goals, revenue, subs, newsletter subs, and books, I'm pretty much going to hit all these goals. The only one that I'm a little unsure about is this newsletter subs. Right now I'm at about 400. I've got 100 more to go. And it's kind of hard to get newsletter subscribers. What you need is, they call them lead magnets, but essentially they're just freebies for people to download and they join the newsletter. And then hopefully over time, they enjoy the emails you write and they become super fans. If not, they leave, and not a big deal. When I'm creating a monthly mission, I want this monthly mission to be something that's going to make progress on the quarterly goals. So if I get this done, it's going to help me get one of those quarterly goals accomplished. And since I'm pretty much on track with every other goal I have, I want this goal to be specifically in line with growing the newsletter. I'm going to say new lead magnet. That's my monthly mission. Now I'm going to draw some fun little progress bars, because why not? Now what I want to do is create the kind of big milestone action steps that are going to get me to accomplishing this mission. So the first thing I'll need to do is brainstorm. So once I brainstorm some lead magnet ideas, I can fill up that progress bar, and it gamifies this goal setting process to where I'm like, ooh, I'm inching closer to my goal as I get closer. So what this does is it creates a progress bar for this monthly mission of mine, which is to create a new lead magnet. Now, if I finish this before the month is over, I can just create another one down here, and another one down here, and another one down here. But in the meantime, I'm just going to make the one because it's a priority. If I set too many monthly missions, there's a high chance that I don't accomplish any of them, because you can't do everything. You can only do the things that you're focused on. Once this is done, then I can do something else. But until this is done, I'm just distracting myself. Now, we have a pretty coherent system here. This is nice. I'm getting excited about using this bullet journal now. Because again, we got our quarterly goals. It's gonna be really exciting to set up quarter two. Now we have our monthly spread, we have our system to get us to meet those goals, and then we also have our monthly mission, that like project-based major focus that's gonna help us reach those goals as well. And then we have the tasks that we're gonna have to get done in March. So let's move on to the final phase of the bullet journal setup, the daily log and the weekly spread. For the weekly spread, I actually keep this very, very simple. So I just section off this top corner. So you do a week of, and same thing as the monthly layout on this right two columns here, you're just going to create a task section. So any task that you know needs to get done this week, you could just quickly make a list right here. And I usually like to make a little quote here, just a little theme for the week. A path is made by walking, and that is by the ancient Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi. Cool. So we got the week, got a cool little quote, and then whatever task I may have for the week. Now here's the part of the bullet journal method that everybody kind of just glosses over, but it is the daily logging system. So every day you're just going to do a daily log. What you do is you just put the date, and then this is where you're going to use that key that we used earlier to mark down things that you're doing. I might say record video, right? And then once I'm done, I will X that off. Underneath this, I'm going to leave a note, camera shut off midway through, and that note is going to be a useful reminder for me in the future because it's going to inform my future behaviors. I'm going to know to make sure that I have enough space on my hard drive so that I don't start recording without enough space, right? Also, when I go to edit the footage, I have this note here going, hey, remember your camera shut off midway, so you're going to have separate video files. It's not going to be all on one. It's useful to me, and so I'll make a note of it. And then I'm going to dinner later, so I'm just going to make an event note, and I'm going to say dinner, cool spot. And so you just create these logs. They don't need to be like, I'm sure you've seen the bullet journal spreads online where it's these immaculate, beautiful things. You don't need all that. You're just making logs here. Now, I'll give you one more advanced tactic if you would like. If you want a more like rigorous system for bullet journaling, something where you're managing your time and you're doing something like time boxing, where you're actually plotting out what you're doing and when, you can easily make a little time box system from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Now we have these hour-long chunks, right? So if I were trying to plan out my day, I could be like, okay, so from 6 to 7, I'm writing. So that 1 hour I'm writing, and maybe I do it and then I fill it in. Maybe that's like the signal I use to myself to say like, hey, I actually did that. And then maybe from 8 to 9, I'm reading. But let's say I didn't actually do it. I'm gonna actually leave a fat X here and be like, I didn't do it. I said I was gonna read from 8 to 9, but I ended up not doing it. I ended up doing something instead. I ended up eating. But when you do this, you could kind of start to log how you are spending your time, and you can get a better understanding of how to start to manage your time and schedule things. Ideally, in a perfect world, what you would do is create some sort of time box schedule for your ideal day, your ideal week, and you would create this kind of template and try to live up to it. What will happen is life will get in the way, and you'll realize that you can't live up to this perfect standard every day, and there's going to be some adjustments, but you can at least try to learn how to manage your time and figure out where you're spending a lot of it. Because this is the thing, A system like this may seem really time consuming and labor intensive, but doing these types of things once will save you so many hours in the future because you're going to learn how you're actually spending your time. You're going to create a record of accomplishments, tasks that you were finishing, things that you were spending your time on that maybe you shouldn't have been spending your time on. And you're going to be able to gather data on yourself. We know data is extremely valuable to predicting behavior because every company on the planet is trying to gather it from you so that they could sell it to advertisers, right? Well, how valuable is it if you have data on yourself and your own behaviors so that you could start to make adjustments in how you proceed in the future? And the more informed you are about your own habits, the better you can kind of map out your future and make adjustments along the way. I usually do a weekly review at the end of every week. So whenever I fill out all the days for this week, I'll do some sort of weekly review. And it's very simple. I'm essentially just asking myself what went well, what was the bottleneck, what am I going to do differently next week? And then I plan accordingly. But what I do think is incredibly valuable that most people don't do is just log things that I did. Because I think when you have that data on yourself from the past, it makes future decision making so much easier. These habits over here that I'm going to keep track of, I'm not just going to mark the box like yes or no, I did do it. What I'm also going to do is daily mark for how long. I'm going to mark that for 60 minutes I filmed, or for 60 minutes I read. And I'm going to tally up all this information over the course of the week and see how much total time spent on these things that I thought were important I actually did. This logging system is great because it keeps you accountable. If you're sitting there and you're trying to lose weight and you mark the box off of exercise every day of the week, the entire month you exercised every day, but you didn't lose a single pound. That's telling you something. That means that you're probably not eating at a deficit or you're not working out enough. It's going to be one of those two things. So if you're logging your calories every day, then you can be like, oh, actually, yeah, I've been overeating every day of the week. Or if you realize that you've only been working out for 5 minutes every day, you could probably sit there and go, yeah, actually, even though I did work out every day, it was only 5 minutes. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe I should increase that time to 10 minutes. So when you have this data on yourself, you can make decisions and you can adjust accordingly, and it makes everything easier downstream. The way that you go about doing this, like actually how do you bullet journal, is you wake up in the morning and you just come into your daily log and you think to yourself, okay, what do I want to accomplish for today? Like what is on the agenda? And you just create a couple bullet points. I'm going to do this, that, that. Maybe you make a time box schedule and you try to accomplish those things, and then you go about your day. And then at night, maybe like 5 minutes, 10 minutes when you're winding down and watching Netflix or whatever, you just look and you go, okay, well, this went well, this didn't, I didn't do that. I'm going to do that tomorrow. And at the end of every month, you're going to migrate tasks over to the next month. So let's say I'm in February and I had a bunch of tasks that didn't get finished, and now I'm in March. If I don't think it's worth hand copying these tasks from February over to March, then those tasks probably aren't important and I could probably just forget about them. Like they're probably just completely unnecessary. The friction in having to hand write everything down makes you consider whether the task is valuable enough to bring on to the next month in the first place. Once you have the index set up and you have your key, you kind of have a nice reference for everything. You got your future log, so anything that comes up in the future, you're going to put it over here, and you got these quarterly goal systems, which is nice to have. And then you got your monthly overviews where you're just going to put key information on these dates. You got your nice little habit tracker, monthly mission, and then any task that you might need to go through. And then you've got your daily logging system and like a weekly overview type of situation. If you're crazy like me and you bought a blank notebook and you don't have a dot grid or a grid system, you can download these for free. I'll leave a link in the description below. This will make it really easy for you to make nice, clean, organized grid systems. You don't need to, but they are nice to have. Again, these are A5 notebook size, so if you have an A4 or something smaller or bigger, it's probably not for you. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. Check out the bullet journal method. Take care, guys. I'll see you next time.